Dadperfectrevenge. When I found my daughter-in-law photographing my social security card at 2 a.m., I knew my 3 years of helping had turned into something much worse than I'd imagined. I was coming back from the bathroom when I saw the light under my bedroom door. Strange, because I always turn everything off before bed. Old habit from 35 years as a firefighter. You don't leave electrical things running when you're not watching them. I pushed the door open quietly, and there was Melissa sitting at my desk with her phone, taking pictures of documents from my personal folder, my social security card, my driver's license, my bank statements, my pension paperwork. She was so focused she didn't hear me come in. I watched her for maybe 30 seconds, just to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. Then she looked up and saw me standing there. "Oh, Jean, you scared me. Tyler threw up and I needed to check if we had any of that medicine you bought him. I thought you might have the receipt in here." Even in the dim light, I could see her phone screen. It wasn't showing a receipt. It was showing a photo of my social security card, clear as day. At 2 in the morning, I asked quietly. She laughed nervously. You know how kids are. When they're sick, they don't care what time it is. I looked toward Tyler's room. No light, no sound, no crying. The house was completely quiet except for us. "Melissa," I said. Tyler's sound, asleep. I just walked past his room. That's when her whole expression changed. The fake concern disappeared and something colder took its place. "Look, Jean, I don't appreciate being questioned in my own home. I was trying to help find that receipt, and now you're making me feel like some kind of criminal." She pushed past me and headed for the door, but not before I saw her slip her phone into her robe pocket, the phone that had pictures of my most sensitive documents on it. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just sat in my chair thinking about what I'd witnessed and trying to make sense of it. See, when you've been a fire chief for 15 years, you develop certain instincts about when something's not right. Smoke doesn't always mean you can see flames, but it always means there's fire somewhere. And I'd been smelling smoke for months. My name is Eugene Morrison, by the way. Most folks call me Gene. I'm 67 years old, retired fire chief from Phoenix. 3 years ago, I moved to Denver to help my son Ryan and his wife Melissa with their little boy Tyler. My wife Patricia had just passed from cancer, and Ryan thought maybe a change of scenery would be good for all of us. What started as temporary help had somehow turned into permanent servitude, and now, apparently, identity theft. Let me back up and tell you how I got to that point, because it didn't happen overnight. When Patricia died, our house in Phoenix felt too big and too quiet. We'd lived there for 23 years, raised Ryan there, built a life there, but without her, every room just reminded me of what I'd lost. Ryan called one evening about 2 weeks after the funeral. "Dad," he said, "I know this might sound crazy, but what would you think about coming to Denver for a while? Melissa's been having a hard time since Tyler was born, and my job's got me traveling more than I'd like. We could really use an extra pair of hands, and maybe being around family would help you too." It didn't sound crazy at all. It sounded like exactly what I needed: purpose and family. Tyler was only 18 months old then, just learning to walk and getting into everything. Young parents need support, especially when one of them travels for work. I'd just retired from the Phoenix Fire Department after 35 years, so I had time and energy to give. The plan was simple. I'd sell the Phoenix house, move to Denver temporarily, help with Tyler until they got settled into a routine, then find my own place nearby. 6 months, maybe a year tops. I sold our house and used $42,000 to help with their down payment. Ryan and Melissa had found a nice place in Lakewood, but they were stretched thin financially. I figured it was an investment in my grandson's future, and honestly, it felt good to be needed again. But somewhere between helping out and moving in permanently, I'd become their unpaid live-in babysitter, housekeeper, and apparently their personal ATM. It started innocently enough. "Gene, since you're up early anyway, could you give Tyler his breakfast? I've got an important conference call. Or would you mind watching him this afternoon while I run some errands?" Ryan was traveling 2 to 3 days a week for his software company, so most of the daily routine fell to me and Melissa. Pretty soon I was handling everything: morning feedings, diaper changes, playtime, afternoon naps, evening baths, bedtime stories. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to get Tyler ready while Melissa slept until 9 or 10. She'd emerge with her coffee, kiss Tyler goodbye, and disappear into her home. Office for important marketing work. Meanwhile, I was doing laundry, cleaning up toys, preparing meals, and basically running the household while they focused on their careers. The financial creep happened gradually too. Gene, could you grab some groceries while you're out with Tyler? Turned into, would you mind covering the electric bill this month? We're a little tight. Before I knew it, I was paying utilities, buying groceries, covering Tyler's clothes and doctor visits. My pension was essentially funding their lifestyle while I worked longer hours than I ever did as a fire chief. But I kept telling myself it was temporary. They were young, still figuring out parenthood and careers. I was helping family, which is what you do, right? That assumption lasted until I caught Melissa photographing my documents at 2 a.m. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened, made Tyler his breakfast, got him dressed, played blocks with him while Melissa slept in. But my mind was working. Over time, running through possibilities like I used to do at fire scenes when something didn't add up. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to things I'd been too busy to notice before. Mail that came addressed to me, but that Melissa said she'd taken care of. Credit card offers that disappeared before I could look at them. Bank statements that seemed thinner than usual. That's when my fire investigation training kicked in. 35 years of working arson cases and insurance fraud teaches you one thing above all else. Document everything before you accuse anyone of anything. Evidence first, confrontation later. I started with my own records, called my bank, and asked for detailed statements going back 18 months. What I found made my stomach drop. There were charges I'd never made, small ones at first, $50 here, $80 there from online retailers I'd never heard of, then bigger ones. A $400 charge to something called Melissa's Marketing Solutions, a $1,200. Payment to a business loan company, charges that added up to over $3,000 in the past 6 months alone. I called the credit card company next. Turns out I had 2 cards I'd never applied for, both maxed out. Total debt, $15,000. When were these accounts opened? I asked the representative. The first one was opened 14 months ago, Mr. Morrison. The second one, 8 months ago. Both applications were submitted online with all the proper verification. What verification? Social security number, driver's license number, previous address history. Everything matched our records perfectly. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest I used to get when we'd arrive at a house fire and realize someone had set it deliberately. This wasn't carelessness or mistakes. This was intentional, but I needed more evidence. In fire investigation, you don't build a case on one piece of proof. You build it on a pattern that tells a story no one can argue with. That's when I decided to set up surveillance in my own bedroom. I called my old partner Harry, who'd become a private investigator after retiring from the department. Harry, I need some advice about a small security camera, something discreet that I could set up in my room. Gene, what the hell's going on? I told him about finding Melissa with my documents. Harry didn't need much explanation to understand what was happening. Jesus, Gene, how long has this been going on? That's what I'm trying to find out, but I need solid evidence before I make any moves. Harry recommended a small wireless camera that connected to my phone. Set it up so it has a view of your desk and dresser. If she's going through your stuff regularly, you'll catch her. I bought the camera the next day while Tyler and I were out running errands. Told him we were going to the hardware store to look at tools, which wasn't really a lie. Installing a hidden camera is definitely tool work. It took me 3 nights to catch her, but I did. Tyler had been fussy that evening, running a low fever, so I'd been up and down checking on him. Around 1:30 a.m., I was finally settling back into bed when I heard my phone buzz with the motion alert from the camera. I opened the app and watched Melissa enter my room with a small flashlight. She went straight to my dresser, opened the top drawer where I keep important papers, and started photographing documents with her phone. My pension statements, my insurance policies, even old tax returns. She was methodical about it. This wasn't some desperate, panicked search. She knew exactly what she was looking for and where to find it, which meant she'd done this before, probably many times. I recorded the whole thing through the security app. 10 minutes of clear footage showing her systematically photographing my personal financial information. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she did next. She pulled out a manila folder I'd never seen before and started comparing documents. Bills with my name on them that I'd never received. Credit applications with my signature, except I'd never signed them. She had a whole filing system for stolen information about me. The final piece came when she opened her laptop and started typing. I couldn't see the screen clearly, but I could see enough to know she was filling out some kind of online application, using my information, using documents she'd stolen from my own bedroom. I had her dead to rights, video evidence, financial records, a clear pattern of identity theft going back over a year. The smart thing would have been to call the police right then. But I had to think about Tyler, about Ryan, about the fact that this was still family, complicated as it was. So I decided to give her one chance to come clean. The next evening, while Ryan was on another business trip and Tyler was in bed, I sat Melissa down at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," I said. She looked up from her laptop with that same innocent expression she'd used when I caught her in my room. "Sure, Jean. What's up?" I placed printouts of the unauthorized charges on the table in front of her. "I'd like you to explain these." Her face went white, then red, then back to white again. I don't know what these are. These are charges on credit cards I never applied for, Melissa. Cards that were opened using my personal information. She stared at the papers for a long moment. When she looked up, the innocent act was completely gone. "Look, Jean," she said, her voice taking on a harder edge. "I know this looks bad, but you don't understand the situation we're in here. Ryan's job isn't as stable as he makes it sound. We've been struggling financially, and I was just trying to help manage things without worrying you. By stealing my identity, I wasn't stealing anything. I was borrowing against your credit to help keep this household running. The same household you live in rent-free, I might add. That's when I knew I was dealing with someone who had no intention of taking responsibility for what she'd done. She wasn't just a thief. She was a thief who thought she was entitled to steal from me. Melissa," I said calmly, "I have video of you going through my personal documents at 2 a.m. I have recordings of you photographing my social security card, my pension information, my insurance papers. This isn't financial management. This is identity theft, and it's a federal crime." Her expression changed completely then. The fake concern and wounded innocence disappeared, replaced by something much colder. "You recorded me in your bedroom? That's disgusting, Jean. What kind of sick old man sets up cameras to spy on his daughter-in-law? The kind who's been having $15,000 stolen from him over the past year and wants to know who's doing it." She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. "You know what? I'm done with this conversation. Ryan and I have been more than generous letting you live here, letting you be part of Tyler's life. But if you're going to start making accusations and spying on family, maybe it's time we reconsidered those arrangements." And there it was. The threat I'd been expecting. "What exactly are you saying, Melissa?" She crossed her arms and looked down at me with pure contempt. "I'm saying that Ryan and I have been talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider other living arrangements. There are some very nice senior communities in the area, places where you'd have people your own age to socialize with, instead of just hanging around here all the time. And Tyler? Tyler is our son, Jean, not yours. We appreciate everything you've done, but we're his parents, and we need to make decisions about what's best for our family." I felt something shift inside me then. The last bit of hope I'd been holding on to, that maybe this was all a misunderstanding, maybe we could work things out, just died. "So, those are my options?" I asked. "Ignore the fact that you've stolen from me, or lose my grandson?" "I think you're being a little dramatic, Jean. No one's stolen anything, and you'll always be Tyler's grandfather. But if you can't respect the boundaries in our home, then yes, we might need to make some changes." I sat there for a moment, looking at this woman who had been systematically robbing me while I raised her child, paid her bills, and provided free childcare for 3 years. The woman who now had the nerve to threaten to cut me off from my grandson if I didn't let her continue stealing from me. "I need to think about this," I said finally. "Take all the time you need," she replied. "But Ryan will be back tomorrow, and we're going to need a decision." That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my chair, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The truth was, I'd seen the signs for months and chosen to ignore them. I'd wanted so badly to believe that I was helping family, that I was needed and appreciated, that I'd let myself become an easy mark for someone who saw me as nothing more than a source of free money and labor. But I hadn't spent 35 years fighting fires and investigating crimes to be intimidated by some entitled 29-year-old who thought she could steal from me and then threaten me when I caught her. The next morning, I called Harry again. "I need that legal advice we talked about," I said. "It's time to file a police report. What happened? I told him about the confrontation, about the ultimatum, about being threatened with losing access to my grandson. Jesus, Gene, she's using the kid as leverage to keep you quiet about the theft. That's not just identity theft, that's extortion. What do I need to do? First, you gather every piece of evidence you have, every document, every video, every record. Then you file a comprehensive report with the police. And then you get yourself out of that house before she escalates this. I don't want to abandon Tyler. You're not abandoning him. You're protecting yourself and setting an example that stealing from family has consequences. Besides, if she's facing criminal charges, she's not going to be in a position to keep you away from that kid for long. Harry was right. I spent the morning organizing everything. Bank records showing the unauthorized charges, credit reports showing the accounts I'd never opened, screenshots from the credit card companies confirming when the applications had been submitted. And of course, the video footage of Melissa going through my documents. By the time Ryan got home that afternoon, I had a complete evidence package ready for the police. "Dad," he called out when he came in. "Melissa said you wanted to talk." I met him in the living room. He looked tired from his trip, and I almost felt sorry for what I was about to put him through. Almost. "Sit down, son. We need to have a serious conversation about your wife." He glanced toward the kitchen where Melissa was making dinner with Tyler. "What about her?" I pulled out the folder with all my evidence about the fact that she's been stealing from me for over a year, and yesterday she tried to blackmail me into keeping quiet about it. Ryan's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I handed him the bank statements. "I'm talking about $15,000 in fraudulent charges on credit cards I never applied for. I'm talking about identity theft, Ryan. Your wife has been systematically robbing me while I've been living here and taking care of your son." He stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "There has to be some explanation." "There is," I said. "She's a thief. And when I confronted her about it yesterday, she gave me an ultimatum. Keep my mouth shut or lose access to Tyler." I could hear Melissa in the kitchen, talking to Tyler in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to sound like a caring mother. The same voice she'd used when she was lying to me about taking care of my mail. "Dad, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," I told him. "But you should know that tomorrow morning I'm filing a police report with all of this evidence. Your wife is going to be arrested for identity theft and fraud." He looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "You're going to have my wife arrested? I'm going to have the person who stole $15,000 from me arrested. The fact that she happens to be your wife is unfortunate, but it doesn't change what she did." That evening was the longest night of my life. Ryan and Melissa had a screaming fight that lasted until almost midnight. I could hear every word through the thin walls. Melissa denied everything at first, then tried to justify it, then finally broke down and admitted to the theft, but claimed she was going to pay it all back. "With what money?" Ryan kept asking. "Where were you going to get $15,000? "I was building the business, Ryan. The marketing consulting was starting to take off. I just needed some time to make it profitable. You use my father's identity to fund your business? Are you completely insane?" Tyler slept through most of it, thankfully. Kids that age can sleep through anything when they feel safe. And whatever else was wrong in that house, Tyler always felt secure with me around. The next morning, I packed my bags while Ryan sat at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee cup like it held answers to questions he'd never thought to ask. "You don't have to do this, Dad. We can work something out. Melissa can get a payment plan with the credit card companies." "Son," I said, "this isn't about the money anymore. This is about the fact that your wife threatened to keep me away from my grandson if I reported her crimes. That's not something you work out with a payment plan." I'd already called the veteran housing complex that Harry had recommended. They had a small apartment available immediately, nothing fancy, but clean and affordable, surrounded by guys who understood what it meant to serve your community and be treated with respect. "What about Tyler?" Ryan asked. "That's up to you and whatever judge handles your wife's case. But I won't be silenced by threats, and I won't enable someone who thinks stealing from elderly family members is acceptable." I filed the police report at 10 a.m. sharp. Detective Sarah Mills took my statement and reviewed all my evidence. She'd seen cases like this before. Family members exploiting elderly relatives was more common than most people realized. "Mr. Morrison, this is one of the most thorough evidence packages I've ever seen for a case like this. You've got everything we need to prosecute. 35 years of fire investigation, I told her. You learn to document everything. Melissa was arrested the following Tuesday. Word got around their neighborhood pretty quickly. Police cars in the driveway tend to draw attention. Her employer fired her immediately when they learned about the charges. Apparently, a marketing consultant with pending felony fraud charges wasn't the image they wanted representing their company. The financial impact hit Ryan and Melissa hard and fast. Without my monthly contribution of $850 for utilities and groceries, plus the loss of Melissa's income, they were struggling to make their mortgage payments. They had to put Tyler in daycare, which cost more than they'd budgeted when they had free full-time childcare. But here's the thing. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I was trying to get justice and protect myself from further exploitation. 2 months after Melissa's arrest, Ryan showed up at my apartment. He looked like he'd lost 20 pounds and hadn't slept in weeks. Dad, I need to apologize. A real apology, not just words. I invited him in. My apartment was small but comfortable, with a view of the mountains and neighbors who nodded good morning instead of treating me like hired help. I should have seen what was happening, he said. I should have protected you instead of letting you be taken advantage of. I was so focused on keeping peace in my marriage that I forgot about doing right by my father. Where's Melissa now? She pled guilty to avoid trial, 18 months probation and restitution payments. We're getting divorced, and Tyler, joint custody. He asks about you constantly. Would you want to see him? Maybe Saturday mornings or something? No expectations, no obligations, just grandfather and grandson time. That was 6 months ago. Now Tyler comes over every Saturday. We go to the park, grab breakfast at the diner, build things with blocks in my living room. The difference is, it's on my terms now. Ryan respects my boundaries and never takes my time for granted. I've found purpose again too, volunteering with the fire department's community outreach program, working with at-risk kids who need to hear from someone who understands that respect is earned and boundaries matter. The veteran housing complex has become home in a way that house in Lakewood never was. The guys here understand service and sacrifice. They also understand that helping family doesn't mean being exploited by them. Sometimes people ask if I regret how everything went down. The honest answer is no. I regret that it took me 3 years to recognize what was happening, but I don't regret standing up for myself. When your love is treated like labor, walking away isn't cruelty. It's clarity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable bad behavior, even when it's family. I'm 67 years old, and I've spent my life serving others, but service doesn't mean letting people rob you blind while threatening your family relationships to keep you quiet. Justice was served, boundaries were set, and respect was restored. Sometimes that's the best outcome you can hope for. If you're watching this, and you've got family members who mistake your generosity for stupidity, remember this. You taught them how to treat you by what you've been willing to accept. It's never too late to start teaching them something different. And if you're a son or daughter taking your parents for granted, thinking they'll always be there to fund your lifestyle or raise your kids for free, think again. Respect is earned, not inherited, and love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's exploitation with a family name attached.